Ba-ba-dum, 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 bum, bum, ba-ba-dum, ba-ba-ba-dum. Hey, how's it going, my friends? This is Nick from the Nerd Frenzy podcast, and today we are going to review The Mandalorian Season 2. Chapter 9, The Marshal. He finds out that there might be another Mandalorian. So he gets there to Tatooine and he sees a bounty hunter in Mandalorian armor. Finds out, not a Mandalorian. They're about ready to duel it out. Next thing you know, big old sandworm. They make an agreement. If you kill the sandworm, I will take this armor off and give it to you. So of course Mando's like, yep. This is the first time you've ever seen Tusken Raiders ever do anything besides hit Luke Skywalker and get killed by Anakin, and he killed younglings. Tusken Raiders and the village town folk team up. You get to see Mandalorian flying around in his jetpack. You get to see Cobb Vanth, played by Timothy Oliphant, also flying around on his jetpack. You guys see Boba Fett's armor going for it. One of the best things about the end of Chapter 9, you get to see Boba Fett. I give this episode an 8 out of a 10. Chapter 10, The Passenger. This episode conflicted with a lot of people. They liked the episode, but they felt like it was kind of a filler. I disagree. First of all, there was a lot of love thrown out there to the Alien fan base. Whole thing about the eggs coming out, the small little things coming after you, and then they get bigger and bigger. Completely inspired by Alien. So I'm always giving a thumbs up for that kind of thing. But it was just a fun episode. It was scary and intense, and you felt a little claustrophobic. Baby Yoda eat eggs, and a lot of people were not having it, and a lot of people thought it was funny. This, you see a little bit more of the bond between Baby Yoda and Mandalorian. You see more of a personal character development kind of approach. So even though this didn't really carry the story much further than the first episode did, it was a very good episode in itself. I give this episode a 7 out of a 10. Chapter 11, The Heiress. So this episode was a lot of fun for me. I loved Clone Wars and Rebels, and one big thing I was hearing rumor-wise was Bo-Katan, the former ruler of Mandalore, was going to be coming back in the show. Now, one thing I was hoping that was correct was Kate Sackhoff was going to be playing not just the voice of Bo-Katan, but the actual live-action version. We had all of them take off their mask, and then she takes off hers, and she says who she is, and I remember just a lot of excitement. And then we see her and the other two Mandalorians with Mando go over and just walk through the Empire. You see how they're scared, and you just see carnage, and it just shows what great filmmaking does when done properly. I give this episode an 8 out of a 10. Chapter 12, The Siege. Seeing Carl Weathers back as Greef Karga and seeing Gina Carano back as Cara Dune was a lot of fun. They were great characters from the first season, and it was great to see him back. Carl Weathers, to me, is one of my favorite things about The Mandalorian. I have loved him from Rocky and Predator and Chubbs and Happy Gilmore. He's been doing a lot of fun stuff for a long time, and I grew up watching him, so just knowing that he was going to be back in the show again was awesome. But he actually directed it, which was a lot of fun too, and you got to see a little bit of a different style, and it all kind of went through from his directional debut. You got to find out a little bit more about Baby Yoda, find out that he's not a clone, and you start seeing little glimpses of them connecting everything with what we saw with the tragedy we call the sequel trilogy. And they're trying to make everything have more of a cohesive feel to this point. I give this episode an 8 out of a 10. Chapter 13, The Jedi. Now, we have been hearing for a long time that the one they call Ahsoka Tano was going to be in it. Live action, first time ever. We all know her from Clone Wars and Rebels. She started off in that little movie that they made, and her character was kind of weak and no one really cared for her. But when they made the show Clone Wars and they started showing her character arc, they started doing some really good things with her, and she quickly became one of the #1 characters in Star Wars universe. When I found out that it was Rosario Dawson, I was super happy. I love her as an actor, and I was excited to see what she was going to do. The way she's walking around with her lightsaber blades illuminating her face, shadows off the trees, made the whole thing a thing of poetry. I also want to note that a wonderful cameo, Michael Biehn. I've loved him from Aliens and Terminator and Tombstone. This is an actor that I was excited to see. This is also where we find out that Baby Yoda's name is Grogu. One thing I loved that connected with Rebels was when she asked the Empire guy, she was interrogating him, where is Admiral Thrawn? Whew. If you guys know anything about Rebels, you know that he is one of the most tyrannical, thought-provoking, Sherlock Holmes-like, intimidating but very calm. The intensity about him, but like a quiet, someone that you don't mess with. And I'm hoping that in season 3 they'll be talking more about Admiral Thrawn, aka showing him, because we need to see that Ezra Bridger too, because they both went through that little whale thing and went through the dimension, and we haven't seen Ezra Bridger or Admiral Thrawn since season 5 of Rebels. So let's go ahead and bring that back, guys. I give this episode a 9 out of 10. One thing that chapter 13 introduced from Ahsoka Tano was that Grogu needed to find himself a Jedi. So what this episode does right away is it shows them at that planet. It shows them calling this beacon for a Jedi to come and help Grogu. It showed Boba Fett coming down in that awesome Boba Fett sound that his ship makes. The Slave One. The sounds. Boba Fett comes out of his Slave One. He walks over to Mandalorian and he says, "Where's my armor?" And Mandalorian says, "You're not a Mandalorian." And he goes, "My father was. I have every right to that armor. It is mine." And I remember thinking, ooh, this is awesome. And then Mandalorian didn't give it to him. So then when they started fighting, the Empire came, they started fighting. And then Boba Fett walks into Mandalorian's, the Razor Crest, and he takes his armor. Next thing you see is Boba Fett walking around with the OG in his suit, just destroying everyone. And it is awesome. And I found out behind the scenes that Tamara Morrison, he's part of a tribe that actually has a specific type of martial arts. And he actually uses that for the final scenes that you see him fighting. He teaches the choreographer some of the fighting stuff, and then that's what they go from. Awesome scene. Moff Gideon takes him. They take Grogu. And Mandalorian is pissed. I give this episode a 9 out of 10. Chapter 15, The Believer. Now this episode right here was something a little special for me. First of all, they were bringing back Bill Burr, the awesome comedian, probably my favorite of all time, in fact. And they had him in season 1, kind of in a throwaway episode for the most part. But when they brought him back, they go to a prison, Cara Dune, Mando. They grab Mayfield. They tell him, you're going to be part of a mission, and there's nothing you can do about it. So they have to go in disguise and act like the Empire. They end up taking control of one of the vessels and happen to accidentally come across a little war that's going on with the Empire and the pirates of that area. You see the Empire for the first time ever almost as the heroes in this point of view, because they're actually saving their vessel. This kind of shows a different perspective, and I like that. I think anything that makes me think. What I loved about this one, Mando and Mayfield get really far in this area that they can find out where Grogu is, where Moff Gideon is. And they get there, and you find out that the Mandalorian has to take off his helmet. This kind of shows the real sacrifice he is willing to make to show how much he loves Grogu. So he takes off his mask and he starts getting crap from an officer. So then Mayfield, Bill Burr, comes in and starts having a conversation with him. And then you start finding a little humanity in Mayfield. You find out that he had to go through some bull crap whenever he used to work for this place. And they had to kill people who didn't deserve to die. And it really messed with him. So he hated this officer. So he ends up blowing him away. And you start feeling a lot of likeness for him. And you kind of just hoping that he gets rewarded. And then this all goes down. And then at the end of it, Mayfield, he actually blows up the whole base. And then Mandalorian's looking at him almost like, okay. Cara Dune and Mandalorian decide to let him go. It was a great feeling. And so you see Mayfield get away almost like, oh, okay, cool. But the really cool thing at the end of this episode, you see Mandalorian call Moff Gideon because he found out exactly where he is. And he says, guess what? I'm coming for you. And he says it the exact same way that it was said to him in first season when Moff Gideon was just pretty much calling everyone out. And he says it right back to him. And you see Moff Gideon's kind of a little nervous about it. But it's a really cool thing to kind of just show, like, you've taken something I love from me, and now I'm going to come back and take that back. I give this episode a 9 out of a 10. Chapter 16, The Rescue. The final episode was a lot of fun. You got to see a lot of characters come back and kick butt together. You got Cara Dune, Mandalorian, Bo-Katan with her people. They find Moff Gideon. Yeah, they have this really awesome fight with Mandalorian and Moff Gideon. And you get to see the Darksaber in action. It was really cool. It was very quick, and I'm a huge fan of Gustavo, as we call him from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, is awesome. I always like him. He's such an intimidating bad guy. So when I got to see him holding the Darksaber and about ready to use it on Mandalorian, it was fun. The Beskar staff that he got in the Jedi episode, he used it with Moff Gideon on the Darksaber. And then whenever you see the Dark Troopers, one is kicking Mando's butt the whole time. You see his Beskar armor helmet getting like dented in, and you're thinking, oh no, how is he gonna get out of this situation? He barely gets out of it. And then they finally get to the cockpit. Moff Gideon sends like 25, 30 Dark Troopers to come save him. And you're thinking, one almost killed our main hero. There's no way. And then an X-Wing flies in to the flight deck. And Cara Dune looked over and she goes, one X-Wing, great. You start to see Grogu liven up. You see a hooded figure walk out. It's all in black and white. And you're thinking, I might know who this is. And then you see a green lightsaber. Okay, it might be him. And he's just wrecking through things. The way Darth Vader did in Rogue One, but it's with robots. It's with these scary, intimidating Dark Troopers. They're getting destroyed by this guy, this random hooded figure. And then you see him just pushing everything out. He's going for it. And they're all looking at him through the screen, and they're seeing this guy just destroy all these Dark Troopers easily, like he's sleeping. Like you see Moff Gideon scared. And then they're all looking at each other. What are we going to do? I'm going to let him in. Don't let him in. And then Mando lets him in. The mysterious figure walks in slowly, hood down, raises up his hood, and it's Luke Skywalker. There was a lot of disloyalty to Luke Skywalker's character in the sequel trilogy. This brought all of that back. We were excited to see him be the Master Jedi that we knew he was going to be. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think my only bad takeaway from the whole thing was I could kind of tell that it was a digital face of Mark Hamill. But I didn't care because it was just awesome. And you see Luke Skywalker say to Mandalorian, he needs your permission. and you see Grogu look up at the Mandalorian, and then all of a sudden you get that really beautiful time where the Mandalorian takes off his helmet and he looks right at Grogu, and they make this beautiful little look. And then he says, "I will see you again." It was really cool. It was really very touching, awesome, emotional. And then Grogu walks over to Luke Skywalker. You see R2-D2 walk out, get even giddier, and then they just start walking away. And then they look back at all the squad, and then the door shuts. But at the very end, you see something very fun. Boba Fett and Finnick coming down in the Jabba's palace and killing everyone there, except leaving the slave woman. They let her go. They kill everyone else, and then Boba Fett sits on the throne. And then you see at the end of it, the book of Boba Fett coming soon. And got me all excited, everyone. This episode was easily a 10 out of a 10. Hey guys, I had a lot of fun recording this for you guys. I'm going to be doing a lot more reviews for you in the future. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and take care.
Nerd Frenzy Podcast.